had a very fortunate career, and with Storm as my probably best buddy and to begin with my mentor, we managed to create the images that you see here, and this is just some of the images. Obviously, over the years, we did a lot of well-known images, and I suppose, again, this is what you see here. We also did a lot of turkeys that we don't talk about. Because I think when you're dedicated in your work, and as a studio, I would call it a collective design studio, it was not unusual for us to work 10-hour days, 7 days a week, and certainly for 14 or 15 years we applied ourselves diligently to try and create images which were not designed within the modus operandi of the record business. The record business at the time when we started in 1967 was very much having a photograph of a band on the front cover. And we decided early on distinctly not to take that route. This was a conscious decision, and it was a decision that we held to. And fortunately, we were privileged enough that most of the big bands we worked for agreed with our philosophy. We weren't very popular, I have to say, with record companies or management, who always wanted a picture of the artist on the front. And of course, with something like Pink Floyd, when you turned up with a cow on a cover with no name at all, it didn't go down too well. And consequently, we kind of made enemies with record companies. They weren't very friendly towards us at all. But always go, you know, with the hand that feeds you, and we always went with the artist. We were always employed by the musician, never by the record company. 10cc, I have to say, were one of the bands who supported us through and through. Their music, which was very popular at the time, particularly in the singles market, could definitely have been pushed into the direction of having their photographs on the front. And the record companies would certainly have wanted that. But Graham and the others all said, no, we're going to go with your designs. And that was a very brave step to take, because if you imagine that an image like this, for example, which is 10cc Deceptive Bends, what does it tell you about the music? It's a narrative, it's a story. And that's what 10cc songs are all about, narratives and stories. And so, although the title, Deceptive Bends, obviously bears relevance to the picture, it's hardly rock and roll. So, again, you have to go back to a period of time in the 70s where this could be done. You could not do these images now. It's simply impossible. With a new generation of MP3s and CDs and all other sorts of things that are developing in the modern world, the digital world, you simply can't do this. And the canvas that we had to work on was often 24 inches by 12 inches, which was a gatefold sleeve. So that, what a luxury was that? You know, a painter would give his right arm to have a successful picture like Dark Side of the Moon that sold 55 million copies, to have an image that 55 million people would see. So again, we were fortunate. It was the salad days of album covers, 1967 to 1982. The person who started that was Peter Blake with Sgt. Pepper, which was radically different, and the Beatles up to that time had only had photographs of themselves on the cover. So again, he laid the groundwork for us. We started in '67. That album came out. We were in there like there's no tomorrow, straight away. We knew that's the area we wanted to be in. And the old adage, it's who you know, not what you know, is very important. And sharing a flat with Sid Barrett, was undoubtedly an advantage. He and the rest of Pink Floyd knew that, well, Storm was at the Royal College of Art doing filmmaking, and I was there by default, because in those days, it was a little bit disorganized there, and somebody recommended to me that I should just turn up and enroll, even though I had no qualifications at all in the photographic department, which I duly did on the first day. And for 6 months I got away with it. The finest education that money could buy was all in how to use darkrooms and Hasselblads and all the rest of it. And then I started with Storm Hypgnosis, and we started working at the Royal Rock and making money from that. And eventually John Hedgecoe, who was the principal there, discovered and said, "You don't belong here, do you?" And I said no, and he said, "Well, you better get out and leave." At which point Storm and I borrowed 1,000 quid from our parents and started the Hipgnosis studio. And just to go on to that very briefly, hypnosis comes from 2 words, hip meaning hip and gnostic meaning wise. And this was written on the outside of our flat by Sid Barrett. I don't know why he wrote it or what he was thinking at the time, but he wrote the words hypnosis on the door frame in pen, and we were very upset about it because we had to pay. We painted with the landlord, very upset. But Storm and I immediately said, "That's a brilliant name for a company." And we chose that name, and thank you, Sid, bless him, which brought us to a point where we were able to do all this. We took photographs and collaged them together. This is a perfect example. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pictures, all collaged together. I divided you to see the joins. These would be cut out very carefully. The backs of the pictures would be sandpapered to make them very thin. They'd then be glued. They'd then be a thin black line put around the edge. A lot of delicate artwork, and many artworks were made and then thrown away because they weren't good enough. We then stick them down so they'd be actually collaged. They'd then be rephotographed. And this one the same. That's 2 separate pictures. That's not one picture. This is the same. That's a different background to that picture. And you might ask, how is this so reasonably done? I mean, if you did it today with Photoshop, it would be easy. You could make a picture like this in a day. This would take us probably 3 weeks to perfect. So, in a sense, our work of collage and our way of doing things was again different, and it was influenced very much by Salvador Dali. When you look at the Salvador Dali picture, it's sharp focus front to back. It's not the way that the eye sees things. The human eye focuses on something, and the foreground and the background are out of focus. What makes Dali, Magritte, the other surrealists or the filmmaker well interesting, but they created images that were sharp front to back. That was a hypnosis trait. This was something that we did. It's impossible. And that's what gives it its super realistic edge. And that was a conscious decision to do that, and that's the way that we work. And again, if you look at if you look at technology now, these images you can make in an afternoon. For us, it was a labour of love. And it was hard work. It was really hard work to get them right.